Hi, this is Megan Denon, and this is for my final project. The movie that I analyzed was Remember the Titans, and it was fantastic. It's one of my favorite movies, and there were just so many opportunities to look at conflict, to think about managing conflict, how things could have been done differently, and how they worked out. It was just fascinating, and it was hard to narrow it down. I chose to focus on three different types of relationships in the film. That is the relationship between Coach Boone and Coach Yost, the relationship between Coach Boone and his players, and the relationships between the players themselves. I felt like the conflict management processes were really relevant to all three of these situations. And the managerial grid for conflict situations by Thomas was definitely something that applied in a lot of the conflict situations here. For example, Yost has this moment in the beginning of the film where his self-interest is very high, and so he wants to avoid the situation altogether and just go to a different school. However, he realizes that this is going to affect his players, and these are kids that he's attached to that have, he's watched them grow up, and he doesn't want to see them have a missed opportunity to excel in football and play on the team. So his concern for others begins to rise, and you can see, and according to the grid, how when this elevation for the concern for others, you start to see collaboration and compromise and dealing with the conflict. So he decides to stay in order to see his players have an opportunity and to kind of make the best of a situation. So he has a lot of compromising that takes place, having to take on the defensive coordinator position, no longer be in a head coach position, and submit to the authority of someone who he, at this point in the film, doesn't really want to submit to. In that same vein, Coach Boone has a high self-interest, and he doesn't really have to diminish that, so his authority stays intact, and pretty much his only concern for others is in relation to kind of keeping the peace with the white team members and the white community. So having Coach Yo stay on was a compromise, and ended up that both of them compromising led to a majority of resolution to this conflict. I don't think that the outcome would have been anything like what it was had these two men not put others ahead of themselves to some degree, and been humble and come together and approached it in somewhat of a team fashion. I also explored just the issue of race and minorities in an organization. I think Boone is kind of the epitome of tokenism that's discussed in the book, and I think he knows that. He takes it really seriously that, he is an example for this community, but that adds so much stress and pressure to him. Like the scene where he's throwing up before the football game just shows how much that was a weight on him, and that's a weight that wouldn't exist except for the fact that he's a minority in this position. The relationship between Jerry Bertier and Julius Campbell was another great opportunity to see how that managerial grid worked, as far as when you start to elevate your concern for others, you start to see compromise and collaboration and understanding. And I think that there were points in the film where a feminist view of conflict did come into play, and I think that's when things played out the best. And I think that that approach throughout all of the conflicts probably would have resulted in better conflict resolution. That in the book it says a feminist view of conflict based on the co-construction of the situation and relationship through collaboration, the sharing of experience and emotion, dialogic interaction, and mutual understanding. I think this is always going to lead to the best outcome if people can humble themselves and come together and understand that this is kind of for the good of the team in this movie and in any organization. But that also, by understanding one another, our self-interests are also going to be addressed. So I loved this film. I thought it was a great opportunity to explore conflict management and to recognize the issue of race, really, but also just minorities in general, and how that affects people and how that affects conflict in any organization, and the importance of addressing that and recognizing it and focusing on resolution for that issue and also for conflict in general. So that's it for me. Thanks for an awesome class, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas.